Okay, I'm glad it's dark. Hi, I'm Patrick. So, when my best mistake came up, I thought of my very favorite band, which happens to be Culture Club. And Culture Club, my favorite song from them is actually Mistake Number 3. And Mistake Number 3 is kind of a play on Third Time's a Charm. It's sort of the reverse of Third Time's a Charm. So it leads up to your biggest mistake. So I'm actually going to give you 3. So, my first mistake. I had a job at Nordstrom that I absolutely loved for 6 years. The problem is I worked there for 10. The last 18 months that I was there, I had a store manager with whom I did not really see eye to eye, and I should have known that there was a problem when she worked in fashion and she couldn't walk in heels. So, one day I decided to leave, and my first mistake was leaving a job without having another one lined up. I left, and I did what anybody does when they, leave a job and they don't have plans for another one or anything. I bought a ticket to New York because I wanted to see the Schiaparelli exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum. So, I was sitting in the airport, and I read this article in the New York Times about how designer vintage was becoming a trend in New York. And it stuck in the back of my head. The problem is I got to New York, and when I was there, I was thinking about Schiaparelli and shoes and street pretzels. And so it kind of left my mind. I mean, the New York Times is awesome, but Barney's is magic. So I came back to Minnesota, and I was living like a life of leisure. And I was in the car on the way to the needlepoint store, which is where I have my best ideas. And I called my much, much better half and said, guess what? I'm opening a designer vintage store. And that was how much thought I put into it. So, my second mistake was opening a designer vintage store. It was a beautiful store. If you were ever in it, I still have a store, but if you were ever in it was in Northeast Minneapolis, and it was filled with the most beautiful clothes you've ever seen in your life. Thank you to the Oval Room. And, there were bars of Bill Blass and corners full of Chanel and ample Armani. Okay, and to use one more alliteration, there were piles of Prada. But there was a table in the corner. And there were tables scattered throughout the store, but there was one in the corner, and it had premium laundry product on it. And my idea for the laundry product was that you would be more willing to buy the clothes if you could care for them. And so I stocked it full of everything you would need to wash every single thing in the store. And that became really interesting to a lot of people. The Star Tribune wrote an article about the fact that I wash everything I own, that I have not sent anything to the dry cleaner in 7 years. And then WCCO called and asked me about dryer sheets. And if you know what I think about dryer sheets, you know where this is headed. But anyway, I talked about dryer sheets, and then I talked about the aluminum foil ball, which became very important to me. It's very important to everyone who knows how to do good laundry. So the following summer, I opened a store at the Mall of America, and the opening went okay. I'll be honest, it didn't go as well as I expected, but because lots and lots of people came in. But the thing about the Mall of America is people wanted one Chanel jacket, or they wanted one bag, and they didn't want to keep shopping. People in the Northeast kept coming in to ask about laundry, and so I launched Laundry Camp. So Laundry Camp became a thing. I gave a laundry camp to the Textile Center at the University of Minnesota as a silent auction item, and this woman told me, I'm going to win it. And I thought, okay, you probably are with, she's planned to win. And so she stood there and she won. And when she won, she told me, well, my sister is in New York and she loves vintage. So when she comes to town, I want her to come to the laundry camp. And so she did. So she comes to the laundry camp, she goes back to New York, and people who live in New York probably talk about different things than people who come visit, because when I go, I want to talk about street food and shoes and Broadway. I'm guessing when you live there, you talk about other things, because she ended up talking about laundry camp. And she told all of her friends, and one of her friends said, oh, you should write a story about that, a little story. And so what's cool is she did. what's cooler is it was for the Wall Street Journal. What's coolest still is she said I had hair like Robert Plant. So, thank you. Shout out to Uptown Curl. So, anyway, so customers started calling, and they kept calling, and they called, and they called, and they called, and they wanted to buy laundry flakes, which was awesome because you can only get them at my store. And so NBC Nightly News called, and they said, we hear there's a laundry camp. What is laundry camp? And so I tell them, and then Care 11 called, and on Care 11, I explained, famously, I guess, that cashmere goats live on a mountain, they're gross, smelly, and dirty, and that they don't go inside when it rains. So why on earth do you think you can't wash them? And then I explained that the geese live there, so you can probably wash down too. So business in the laundry world grew and grew and grew, and vintage kind of stayed the same, even though, vintage is kind of where my heart was. Which led to probably my best mistake, because it's mistake number 3, so it's the big one. I hadn't trusted what I was good at. I didn't listen to what I was supposed to do. My friend Dawn, I thought vintage was the way to go. My friend Dawn has an amazing vintage store in the Twin Cities, and she does really, really well. And my friend Cameron has a vintage store in Beverly Hills, and he had a show on Bravo. He did very, very well. And so they've done really, really well with vintage, but it wasn't what I was supposed to do. I didn't realize what I had. I had a store in the Mall of America, which is no small feat. It's the #1 tourist attraction in North America. And that was great. But what I realized is I have a message. I have this message about green cleaning and the fact that you can clean and you can take care of things. And so then I had one other thing. I had Karen. Karen's here. She doesn't know I'm going to talk about her, but I am. So Karen contacts me and she's like, we should write a book. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to write a book. And she says, well, I do. And that was nice. And she did, which was great. And so, I said, okay, we're going to write a pitch. And then I had a friend, Chuck Klosterman, who wrote books. And Chuck said, well, I can help with the pitch, and I can help with the agent. So I called the agent, and then we called the agent. And now we call him our agent. And so that's awesome. And so then he sold the book immediately, which was incredible. And so then, I guess I kind of realized my biggest mistake wasn't opening a vintage. It wasn't, a mistake was Nordstrom. I'm just going to go ahead and admit that. My mistake wasn't opening a vintage store. My best mistake was not believing. And what's really lucky, and the reason it's my best mistake, not a mistake, is because I didn't believe when I shouldn't have believed. I believed when it was just the right time. And my best mistake happened because I didn't believe. And so when I believed, everything fell into place, and I guess it was no longer a mistake. That's it.